our fundamental responsibility to appreciate ourselves, uh, to have genuine self-thought and to have genuine and positive self-talk. Um, you know, Most of us don't recognize that, you know, we're always talking to ourselves. Um, we think in words, and our thoughts are words. Our thoughts are expressions that we have, and that we're expressing to ourselves on a daily basis. And so we have expressions. We say things to ourselves about who we are and how we are. And so it's self-care involves ensuring that the thoughts that we have towards ourselves are thoughts that reflect the thoughts that God has towards us, that God has thoughts to increase us and not to harm us, to advance us, and thoughts about our salvation. Uh, Self-care also involves um, having that sense of the importance of the connections that we share with others, and in having a healthy interaction with our environment. So when we think of self-care, we think of putting ourselves in the best possible position to have the best life and have the best outcomes in life. Uh, so self-care, as I was saying, means that I'm assuming responsibility for my upkeep and my sustenance and success. I'm not, with self care, I am recognizing and taking ownership for having the healthiest possible presentation of myself. Uh, when we think of self care, the word that comes to mind is balance. Self care is about living a balanced life, um, having a balanced lifestyle, maintaining, physical, social, spiritual, and mental well-being. And our physical life, our social life, our spiritual life, our mental life, they are balanced, and we're operating in balance. Part of that balance is with self-care is practicing healthy coping strategies. Um, and one of the fundamental uh, principles of healthy coping strategies is developing solution-oriented thinking. And so, um, with self-care, we, rather than adopting a problem-oriented uh, worldview, we have a solution-oriented worldview. Um, and in that worldview, we have an understanding that simply states, I am the best person to take responsibility for me. In fact, in fact, self-care is really important, that I understand that I am the best person to take responsibility for me, simply because, in the first place, I am the person who knows me the best. Um, of course, God has this amazing uh, knowledge of who I am. And in fact, his knowledge of who I am includes knowledge of who I'm going to be and what I'm becoming. That kind of knowledge I'm yet to develop. But self-care allows me to recognize that no other individual, once I have developed the capacity to take care of myself, self-care allows me to appreciate that no other individual uh, is better positioned to take care of me as long as I have the physical and mental ability to do so. And so this is a fundamental and critical, uh, you know, worldview that we need to develop. That our minds and how our minds, our social experiences, our social life, our spiritual life, all of that is related to our ability to succeed. And so with self-care, I am adopting a healthy body and a positive mental environment, um, so as to create a platform for success. I'm doing that, and I'm taking responsibility for that. Um, One of the things that self-care immediately brings to mind, uh, one of the most important purposes of self-care is to avoid burnout, and even compassion fatigue. Burnout is actually a byproduct of doing good and doing things that needs to be done, but doing them in a way that violates the principles of self-care, that that allows me to achieve things while I am in the process harming myself. And so self-care allow me to adopt this balance where I'm doing good things while actually protecting myself. Um, for example, with compassion fatigue. Compassion fatigue is a concept where people are helping others, and in the process of helping others, they engage so much in helping that at some time they develop a tiredness for helping, and they get drained, and then they lose interest in helping. It's not because they no longer want to change, but because they have been exhausted. They've given so much without getting back, taking the time to rejuvenate, that that they no longer have the capacity to help, and sometimes they could end up doing exactly the opposite of what they were trying to do when we're dealing with compassion fatigue. Both compassion fatigue and burnout, are usually byproducts of doing good things, but doing good things in a way that compromises my sense of health and well-being. Brussels, and his colleagues in 2014, did a study on self-care, and in the study they concluded that self-care alleviates, if not control, symptoms of stress and again compassion fatigue. What they were saying is people who take care of themselves. The study showed that when people take care of themselves, they reduce this whole idea of wearing down. They have less health issues, and for students, they found that these students had positive academic outcome. In other words, when we engage in health in self-care, we really put ourselves in a position to enjoy the fruits of our labor. What good it is to work really hard and not be able to enjoy the benefit of your work. See, God wants us to have a balanced life and to live fulfilling lives and to live in hope. And self-care positions us to be able to live in hope and to enjoy our lives. Part of this understanding of self-care is seeing ourselves through the lens of what I call the critical eye. What do I mean? Um, I mean that we understand that the person, me, the individual, um, is central to whatever I do and whatever I become. The person, my person, who I am, is critical to that, and I cannot separate um, myself. In other words, um, if I do not take care of the car, do the maintenance on um, the car would have all the potentials that it's ever had, but it may not be able to perform those potentials because maybe if I'm not changing the oil or I'm not ensuring that there is coolant in the radiator, then the engine could be damaged and the car would not be able to perform. And so uh, every car owner knows that it is very important to take care of the vehicle itself. Um, so what does that mean? The critical eye means that I would do self appraisals. I would go through a process of doing positive self appraisals. I would take a look at my life. One way of doing that is actually to making a list of my daily activities and listing all the things I do in a particular day, and hour by hour throughout the day. Some of us we have a we are expected to have a 16-hour wake hour day and at least an 8 hour sleeping time in our day. Some have less, some have more. More often we have less. And so when I go through my day and I list all the daily activities, all the things that I do during the day, I make a list of that. And if I do that for a week, then I go back over my list and I think about things that are important to my sense of well being, and then look through that list and see if those things are there. For example, I might find that my day is filled, but when I look through the list of the day, I recognize I don't have 5 minutes for exercise. Or I recognize that maybe I didn't have time to eat several times for the week, or maybe I got less sleep than I needed to get. So that critical self, that self appraisal, that positive self appraisal, allow me to gain insight that I otherwise would not have seen. Very often we get into routines and we leave out those routines without having the opportunity to look in on it. And so somebody looking at our lives, they're going, wow, this person is on a train wreck to crashing at some point. But for us, it's become so normal that we cannot see the inherent danger in our schedule. So the critical self-appraisal allow us to take an honest look at our lives after we write out our daily activities. Um, and because it's also honest and accurate, because we're just writing things out without judgment, just actually listing the things that we've done all day long exactly as they are, and then we go back and evaluate that. Um, we also, with a critical eye, we want to appreciate that our thoughts and our feelings are the result of our learning history. And so once we have developed that learning history, then that learning history becomes a seed, or it's like a strainer that every new experience we have passes through that, and only the things that the seed allow would pass through. And so it controls what enters and leave our lives. And so our learning history can be very critical, and and that our learning history is also a part of our critical eye. And our learning history is the sum total of all of our individual experiences. And put together, it determines how we live and how we take care of ourselves, how we treat ourselves. And so um, then we recognize that that concept of ourselves, whether it's formed intentionally or unintentionally, that concept of ourselves goes with us wherever we are. So we take that self concept to work on a daily basis. Um, and that self concept, the self who we are, shows up at work. It shows up in situations. Um, you know, understand that we can only give what we have, and what we have is what we would give. And so um, all of these experiences and the impact of those experiences, they are affect who we are and how we function, how we're going to be in relationships. And so the critical eye, the accurate, that self-appraisal allow us to stop and to think and to look at our experiences and the impact of our experiences, because they are actually contributing in a very direct way to how we are being and how we are functioning. And so it's really important for us to appreciate the significance of the critical eye. Um, the other thing about why it's important to pay attention to the critical eye is that not only do we respond to the world through the eyes of that self perception that we have, um, but we take people where we go ourselves. And so uh, we tend to try to bring people where we are at more often than try to meet them where they're at. And so we're looking for others to come and join us in our experiences, join us in the way we do things, join us in the way we live. And that happens more often than us trying to join others where they are. So when we are able to take care of this critical eye, when we do this healthy, positive, and accurate, honest self-appraisal, these information come to the surface, and then we are able to begin to have a better understanding of ourselves. Now, without an effective, honest, positive, accurate self-appraisal, we could find ourselves in a very compromised position. You see, healthy people love themselves, but are not preoccupied with themselves. I'm going to say it again. Healthy people love themselves, but are not preoccupied with themselves. So healthy people do well by themselves, but they don't worship themselves. Healthy people have an understanding of themselves and an understanding of their godly responsibility to take care of themselves and to ensure that they're doing all that is possible for them to have the best possible lifestyle that allows them to experience fulfillment in life and satisfaction and achieve meaningfulness. But healthy people are not preoccupied with themselves. One of the downsides or the immediate negatives attached to not doing this self-appraisal is that we might not be aware that we have a certain level of defensiveness in our experiences because of our learning history that allow us to have, again, a preoccupation with self. We may not even know that we are preoccupied with self, and so we may not, we may be reacting because we do not have an awareness of self. We do not even know that some things are there, and these things are there running subconsciously like programs in the background of your phone, in the background of your computer, and they're using up energy. They're occupying space in your computer, and they're affecting how the computer is running, although not directly. And so that's what happens when we do not take the time to do this self-appraisal, this self-evaluation, to take an honest, critical look at ourselves. And again, by critical, I mean it's almost like an investigation and an experimentation where you actually look at yourself objectively and to decide and to find out what's really is there in our experiences. Now, there are three must-haves if we're going to have healthy lives. There are three must-haves. The first must-have is that we must develop an accurate and positive awareness of self. We must develop that. And so people must prioritize developing an honest, positive mental picture of themselves. What is that view I have of myself? Some people may not even be aware that the view that they have of themselves reflects insecurity, some level of insecurity. And when that is the self view, it is a positive and for the most part not accurate. Or very often when we have these level of insecurity attached to our view of the self, is because we have perhaps some things that we're built, that this worldview is built on, that may not be accurate. And so we have this negative picture of ourselves that's allowing us to get into all kind of levels of psychological and conflict. And so it compromises our psychological health. One thing that I try to encourage when I'm dealing with this idea of self-care, I generally ask people to take the time to write at least one paragraph describing, the intrinsic worth, that your internal worth, who you are as a person, that inherent worth. And you write that at least in one paragraph, and with purely positive terms. And so there is no negative word, no negative phrase, no not in there, no but in there. It's all written in positive terms. So you take the time and you draft this paragraph about yourself, describing who you are, to ensure that awareness of yourself, you're developing this positive and accurate awareness of the self. Also involved in this in a healthy self-care is developing the second must-have. The first one, of course, is the accurate positive awareness of yourself, that mental picture of yourself, a positive one of who I am. Secondly, developing an accurate and positive awareness of need. It's important to appreciate that by virtue of being finite beings, we are creatures of limitations. By that I mean we we have to appreciate that there are things that we're just not able to do, and that's okay because we are people who have limitations, and and sometimes we develop an unhealthy relationship with having needs. Sometimes we were socialized to develop the kind of relationship with having needs as to mean that there's something wrong, or maybe a deficit we have, uh, or this faulty concept of not being good enough. All of this stuff kind of happens because we have needs. The truth is, everyone has needs, and we have to with self care, we have to become comfortable with having needs. We have to become comfortable with the idea that someone else is going to have to contribute to our sense of welfare and well-being, and that in order for us to be successful, we're going to need others to contribute to our success, because we cannot be all things to ourselves at all times. Um, we are creatures of need, so we must develop an accurate and positive awareness of our needs. Also important with this idea of having a positive and accurate awareness of our needs. If I do not know my limitations and have a healthy relationship with my limitations, I would not know what to ask for. In fact, I might not even know what to pray for. I might go to God, and because I didn't take the time to to assess my needs, or to become familiar with my needs, or to become okay with my needs, I might go and just have general prayer with God, and may not be able to express what really need to express to God. So developing this whole idea of having an accurate and positive relationship with our limitations puts us in a position to take care of ourselves and also to welcome help. It is really important. So the self-care involves knowing when to ask for help and knowing how to receive help. And to do so, I must have a healthy and positive relationship with my needs. The third critical point when we talk about self-care is this idea of uh, healthy, supportive, uh, healing relationships. And so, in order for us to have a healthy sense of self, we must know that we have healthy, positive, supportive, and healing relationships. Um, People thrive in community. We do best in community. If we're not operating in community, we are less likely to be healthy. In fact, people who withdraw from community or isolate are less likely to experience healing, both from physical diseases and all kinds of maladies. Um, People who are dealing with loneliness are less likely to recover fast when they have had to deal with some level of crises. And so, in order for us um, to be healthy, we need to be engaging and to be able to maintain, um, healthy relationships with others that we know are supportive. Um, and so, I would say here to us today, if you tell me about your relationships, I will be able to have a window into your soul and into your heart, because the type of relatedness that you are experiencing tells me about the quality of your inner life, because we cannot separate our inner experiences, our self view, and our view of ourselves from the type and quality of our relationships. So when we talk about an accurate awareness of self, um, McMillan points out, that the capacity to make decisions, to function when a loved one is absent, to have and exercise preferences, to set goals and to discuss feelings, requires an awareness of self. In other words, without an accurate and whatever awareness of self, you know, the if we have a positive awareness of self, we would be confident when we have to do things, when someone we need to rely on is absent, because we have that self, that awareness of self, that allow us to be confident about who we are, and who we are in relation to others, and who we are by ourselves. Um, you know, when we have an awareness of self, we are able to exercise preferences and engage in that comfortably, set goals for ourselves, and and strive to actually attain those goals. Um, when we have an awareness of self, we also have an awareness of feeling self. We have self insight, and so we are able to express our feelings and give voices to our inner experiences. Um, you know, Self insight is critical, and a lot of times uh, we continue to engage in behaviors that are less than beneficial to us, not because we want to, but because we do not have self insight. And so we are blinded to our own needs, because we do not have the level of self insight that reveal those needs. And sometimes when others see those needs and then communicate that to us, we are less likely to be receptive, because we're going, okay, I don't know what you're talking about. That's not me. I don't know who you're talking about. That's because we don't have that level of self insight. And and so without self insight, we are less likely to to engage in the kind of options that allow us to become healthy. Um, so not knowing is not golden, when we're talking about self care. Um, Another thing about self insight is that self insight, again, if we have this positive awareness of self, we're able to frame things in a way that communicate to us the true or true sense of purposefulness that we are, in a hopeful existence. We are actually operating within a hopeful existence. So, for example, we may not say I am weak when we have a healthy sense of self. We may say, however, I have the capacity, for example, to develop mastery and strength. Or maybe you say, I am getting stronger instead of I am weak. And that's because we have a positive view of self, and we have a positive view of needs. And so we understand that if I have to attain something new, a new skill, that does not mean that I'm operating from a deficit. It means that I'm actually becoming better, and I'm learning how to have a better sense of self-expression. Um, Bandura also talked about self-efficacy, which is different to, of course, to esteem. Self-esteem actually is having a healthy and positive view of ourselves. But self-efficacy actually is having a healthy and positive view of our skills and our abilities. In other words, when we talk about self-efficacy, we're talking about having confidence in our ability to do things. And so, um, a healthy sense of self care, also involves, you know, getting to know ourselves and getting to know our potentials, getting to know our abilities. And so, yeah, along with knowing our abilities, we also know our limitations. And again, like we talk about needs, um, you know, I am not able to play, the piano. I could actually, find notes on the piano. I could go on and find C and F and G and some flat. I could do that, but I'm not able to put them together harmoniously and produce great music like Pastor Wright could, or so I'm not going to go on the piano in the church service and try to play the hymn. I mean, that's going to be a bedlam of noise that creates all kind of confusion. So when I understand my abilities, what I can do, and having a healthy, you know, I'm not looking at it comparative, in terms of comparing my ability with others' ability. I'm just developing an accurate knowledge of the things that I can do and cannot do. And maybe I would learn what I think I would need, skills I might want to acquire, and go out there and acquire them in order to basically perform activities that I would like to, that would make me happy. And so, self-efficacy is about having this awareness of what we can do. Um, it's also important for us to appreciate that, when we think about ourselves, one of the powers of self-care is that when we have an accurate awareness of self and an accurate awareness of needs, and we are engaging in healthy relationships, we discover that we're more alike than different to people. And so we are less likely to look at ourselves comparatively. Rather we see ourselves as equal contributors to our communities, and it gives us a sense of belongingness. And so, with a healthy sense of need, um, we recognize that it actually is a requirement that God has for us, for maintaining a positive mental, social, spiritual environment. And so when we develop that, we also minimize the noise that life can produce and provide more space for quietness so we can connect with God. I'm sure you can identify with me when I say that the more involved we are, when we are operating, when our life, is when we're on the go, and we have little time to stop and to reflect, we look back and we might say things like, I don't feel as close to God as I would like to feel. That's because there's less quiet time in our lives. And self-care, when we have that accurate awareness of needs, then we would be able to appreciate the importance of scheduling quiet time for meditation and for prayer, and for all those amazing things that rejuvenates us and give us this opportunity to grow and to thrive. But we need to have that level of self-awareness to tell us when to stop, because and to when, and how to continue, and to have those assessment of ourselves. Um, and so when we are able to do that, we have this healthy sense of need and that healthy sense of uh, that self view. Now, I mentioned before that self care involves also engaging in healthy relationships. Understand that, again, like I said earlier, we are hardwired uh, to be social. We would not be happy in isolation. We're not created to be alone. In fact, God talked a bit about it, and it was very evident in His creation. It's not like God observed that He made a mistake when He said it's not good for man to be alone. In fact, God was talking to us, not Him. He already knew that. And well, how do I know that? Well, He was in His creation. He created every other thing else in groups and in communities, and so God knew the importance of community and of relationships. But when He said it was not good, it's not good for man to be alone, He really was talking to us. He was saying to us that we would not be our best selves if we're not engaging in healthy relationships. And so self-care demands ensuring that our relationships work well, and that we are available uh, for our relationships and to contribute what is needed in our relationships so that they can function well. Because if our relationships function well, we will function well. Um, you know, so because remember, our emotional health, and of course we know that um, when there is dysfunction in our relationships, it has a direct implication on our mental and emotional health. And so it affects that in a very negative way. There are negative consequences attached to that. And so whether those relationships are intimate relationships or platonic relationships, um, you know, whether it's just our fellowship in church or in our groups and communities, when those relationships fall apart, they directly impact our mental, emotional, physical, social, and spiritual state of being. And it is when in our relationships that we internalize this idea of belovedness. What do I mean by this term belovedness? Um, this idea is the idea that I am the apple of God. I am the apple of God's eye. That I am as significant as the most significant thing, a person that God created. That God sees me as first, and in the same way He sees everyone as first. It's not a classification, but it's an awareness that I have that level of significance. And so I am the beloved. God loves me as He loves Jesus. He loves me no less than He loves Jesus. He loves me no less than He loves Himself. As a matter of fact, He sees me as deserving of the gift of Himself. And that's the level of belovedness that I have. And so when I am, existing in this love space, this space where I'm experiencing ultimate acceptance, I develop a healthy sense of belongingness. And my identity is tied to my sense of belongingness. Um, and so when I am experiencing that, when my relationship is healthy, my identity, it tend to be stable, and I'm not into this identity crisis. I know who I am. I know how I'm functioning. I know where I'm going. I have this level of confidence because I am existing in the space of belongingness. Um, all of us know that if we walk into a place and we sense that people think we shouldn't be there, we probably would not want to stay there. That's how important that is to a sense of well-being. Um, Central to this idea of relationship and self-care, how does self-care, what does self-care look like in relationship? Well, self-care is a byproduct of respecting boundaries. And so, um, you know, and respecting boundaries is is an act of loving and being loved. And so when we are engaging in healthy relationships, self-care really means taking care to identify, respect, and appreciate boundaries and in relationships. And once we're doing that, we'll be experiencing love and fulfillment in relationship because we also not only would be experiencing love, we'll be operating in a state of trust. And that's why God said it so clearly, if you love me, obey me, do keep my commandments. So when we are engaging in self-care in a relational sense, we are constantly operating in a state of awareness of boundaries and appreciation for boundaries and a commitment to actually honoring boundaries. Those actually allow us to engage in healthy, fulfilling relationships. And so, any questions and thoughts so far? Well, I'm going to offer here a couple of things that I'd like us to, and before we close, maybe just a couple more thoughts I want to share with you here, and then we'll probably close off. But let me first share this. How is self-care related to performance? Well, people who do not take care of themselves literally put themselves in a position to not be as effective as they would like to be. Um, if there's a reason why um, we have schedules at work, um, there's a reason why we work a certain number of hours. Um, the best performing athletes, they have a schedule, including a sleep schedule. They have an eat schedule. They have a specific diet that they follow. They high performing athletes live very controlled lives, lives that are highly regimented, um, because they understand that in order for them to perform at a high level, they have to take care of their body and keep their body uh, functioning at an optimal level. And so, um, you know, when it comes to if I am burnt out, if I'm tired, um, if I feel spent and drained, I will not be able to give of my best. Um, I cannot function well if I am not sleeping and I get to work tired and sleepy. I just cannot function well. And even if I use some form of medication, whether it's coffee or whatever I use, um, I might gain some energy, but in the process of doing that, I'm destroying my body and I'm compromising my health. And so I cannot be my best self. Um, you, you know, so my work quality is going to be negatively affected if I have poor self care. But if I engage in healthy self-care where I take I'm attentive and I'm taking care of myself physically, taking care of myself emotionally and spiritually, I would have a higher output and I'll make less mistakes. I'll have more accuracy in what I do. And, one actual benefit is that in my relationships, I would be less irritable. I'll have more patience. Um, and so I would have a healthier view of myself because I would actually be feeling better. And even if we feel better when we do better, feeling better also contributes to our confidence to do what we need to do. And so, if we're feeling sick and we're feeling lethargic and we feel like we don't have energy, we will be less confident in doing stuff. So, self care is very significant in terms of being able to achieve that. What recommendations can I give us in closing? One I could recommend when we talk of healthcare, we want to pay attention to our health habits. So we have to ensure, again, when we look at the schedule, when we go back over the schedule that we've written out of, what we do hourly for about a week, and we assess that, we look to see if we're getting adequate sleep. Um, Harvard had a study not a few years ago that determined that if we're getting less than 5 hours of sleep a night for 5 hours straight, uh, our blood chemistry reflects having an alcohol level of 0.5. In other words, sleep deprivation is as dangerous as alcohol. That's what they were saying. In fact, there are more accidents that are created um, because of sleep deprivation than we would like to believe. I mean, it's costing the United States billions of dollars every year um, because people go to work, make all kinds of mistakes on work. We have medical injuries that occurs because people were sleep deprived. People in high security uh, situations, they react in ways that are very costly because they are sleep deprived. And so, fundamental to taking care of our health is to ensure that we're getting enough sleep and enough rest. And so, diet is another important thing that I mentioned before. High functioning people are very particular about their diet. Um, and so, ensuring that we have a healthy diet is whatever the diet is, it must be healthy and it must provide us with the energy that we need so we can function at a high level. We must have exercise. Thank God on Monday night and the Thursday nights here, there is exercise happening. And I hope that we are also getting at least 20 minutes of exercise a day, intentional exercise, even if it is just walking. But engaging in exercise daily, that's a critical part of that. Ensuring that we are hydrated. In fact, dehydration is a real problem, and it mimics a lot of illness and also creates a lot of illness. So ensuring that we are hydrated, drinking water and not necessarily sugary drinks. Ensuring that we have our medical checkups and doing all those other things that we need to do to ensure that we are healthy. When we're doing that, it's really central to our self care. So if any of that is lacking, then we need to recognize that there is an area for improvement in terms of our self care. Um, a, Another recommendation is accepting our limitations, accepting that we cannot do all things, and honestly accepting that we need help. That is a very central part of self-care and accepting that. Um, and not only accepting that, but develop help-seeking habits, healthy help-seeking habits. And so we need to be able to accomplish that. Recognize also, um, a critical one when it comes to self-care is this idea of recognizing that we're not in control. We don't have control over everything. We would never have control over everything. That recognize that we are controlled beings. We are God. There are rules and regulations and principles that supersedes us that we have to be obedient to. And so developing a love for rules and limitations, um, you know, help us to develop that sense of self-care. We need to be honest and honestly accountable. Speak truth to ourselves. Allow ourselves to have a healthy relationship with truth, and to be, especially when it comes to hearing difficult things, uncomfortable things. We need to have develop a sense of uh, surrender and humility in other words, for us to do that. So if we're going to have a healthy sense of self and experience self-care, we have to appreciate that we cannot go it alone in life. We need company, we need help, we need people. We need to network, we need to engage in the kind of activities that may even lessen our workload. It's not important when we succeed to succeed alone. We need to appreciate that no good business, succeed without the input of others. I'm sure you heard the phrase that the customer is always right. What this really means is that without the customer, we really are nowhere and would be nothing. So appreciating that it's not just about us, it's about others as well, and valuing the contribution that others would make in our lives. Um, we also need to recognize that in doing well and in doing the right things and in doing good, there is a limit. And so the limit is we do not do good at the expense of ourselves. In that, what I'm saying is, um, even with Jesus, if you look through the New Testament and you'd recognize that he wasn't out there usually in the hottest time of the day uh, doing ministry. So Jesus was careful about that, and so you saw him also withdrawing from the 12 and going up into the mountain by himself to rejuvenate and to be with his father. So he withdrew himself from this actual constant giving and took time to recharge. And so we need to be able to do that. Um, if we are uh, engaging in constant care, then we also setting up ourselves to become occupational hazards. We are setting up ourselves for mistakes, and we are setting up ourselves um, to be exposed to risk. So we want to be able to give our best service, and our best service requires taking care of ourselves. Um, you know, if we have experienced trauma, and and of course, there are ways to basically know if we have experienced trauma, and that's probably something we will do. We'll talk about trauma, at some point here soon. But if we have experienced trauma, it's important for us to seek help um, with our own traumas, because that's going to significantly implicate how we function in relationships, and it could significantly negatively impact our relational health. And so we need to also create support systems, ensure that we have a support system, people we can go to, we can rely on, we can trust, somewhere we can go. We have a place where we have a sense of support, and so we have to ensure that we have that in our lives, so that we can, as part of our self-care, ensure that we create support system. Um, and a critical thing I always say to people is that, whether as school teachers, preachers, evangelists, whether we are witnessing and so forth, it's important to remember that we are responsible for teaching, for offering what we have. We do not control whether people receive it. And so, a level of openness, uh, with appreciating the limits of our control. And I trust that, if we would probably consider these few steps, we might have gained some appreciation for self care. But we only have one self, and we only have one life and one opportunity to take care of ourselves. If we miss that opportunity, there is no other opportunity coming. We have one self, one life, and one chance to take up our one self in our one life. And I ask us today to consider in a very profound way this opportunity to take care of ourselves. Thank you for being with us this evening. Thank you for listening to us this evening, and we trust that you would have learned something. Before we close up, is there any question that anyone might have, or any uh, comment that anyone might have before we close up?
You touch on several points. You were on topic there,
Mhm,
but I don't know how to say it.
mhm,
Healthy, health, especially if you're in a relationship and you want to
mhm,
be in a healthy one. And
mhm,
if you what if you try to do yourself very best because you want to be in something healthy where everything is healthy.
mhm,
And what about if the other person don't want to be in a healthy relationship and try to do everything for that relationship to be unhealthy? What would you do in that case?
mhm. Well, it depends on the relationship. There are different responses based on the relationship. The one thing that is really important is that, we have to appreciate that we only have uh, responsibility. We're the best person to take care of ourselves. I know it's always, um, a catchy thing to desire others to take care of us, and it's great when that happens because it's amazing. Um, but we also have to appreciate that sometimes the people we are able, we believe we should depend on to be there for us. These people either can't or don't make themselves available to actually be there for us in the way we want them to. And so we have to make a decision as to whether we want these people's behaviors to control our life and how we're going to be and what our experiences are going to be. This means we have to make decisions to set boundaries, for example. We talked about boundaries. And one of the boundaries we have to set is a boundary that says, um, I will not, put myself in a position to be mistreated. Does that make sense?
Hmm. Uh no, well, it all depends anyway. It all depends. What what uh,
Hmm.
what if the other party constantly lying? What you do when you're with the other party? You start constantly lying. What can you do for that person to change when that person constantly lies about just about every and anything and make it look real?
Hmm. Hmm. Well, let me ask a question this way. Who is doing the lying? You or the person?
The person.
Who? can stop, you or the person?
Well, the person just lies all the time.
Right. And so you realize how it's a setup for frustration and anger because we're trying to engage in creating change in someone or something we have no control over. Let me ask you a question. So I am cooking here in St. Lucia. You are in Queens. Um, I'm putting the seasoning in my pot and you're not there. Uh, could you control how much the seasoning I put in the pot from where you are without being here?
No.
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 I have to give you power and access for you to do that, right? So if I
Right.
don't give you access and I don't give you power, you recognize how there is nothing you could do to help me with my situation.
Right.
So the issue is not the person, not what the person is doing. The issue is that in that situation, the person who's trying to help the other person does not have the ability to influence the other person's life. And in relationships, one of the most important things in relationship is knowing that I have the ability to influence my partner. If I cannot influence my partner, I am not in a healthy relationship.
You believe you can be healthy, cannot be healthy. That
Yeah,
can't be healthy.
it doesn't work and it cannot work.
No, it wouldn't work. And sometimes no communication either. And when you want to live a healthy life and everything healthy, and if you have somebody who don't communicate, that is another thing again. Lack of communication. Because if I
Mm-hmm.
am getting up every day and I'm making your meal, and every time I make your meal, it's salty, salty, salty. You like salty food, but not that salt. And if you don't push out
Mm-hmm.
and say, hey, it always salt. Do something about it. If you don't tell me, how am I going to know to measure, how to stop and then I would measure the salt if you don't tell me. But then you will
Mm-hmm.
go, I will complain to somebody else, and then that somebody complain to somebody else, and so best you go directly to the person and say, look, I like your cooking, I like everything about it, but it's just too salty. So if you could just be cut
Mm-hmm.
down on the salt, more than you go and
Mm-hmm.
you tell the left hand and then you go to the right hand and you go back to, you know what I'm saying?
Right. And so, in other words, what I'm hearing is it sounds like there's an awareness that when that's happening, it feels like it feels like an undermining of who you are, and and so it's painful and it hurts, and it sort of puts you in a kind of powerless position, and so one of the things that comes along with that is the idea of accepting the limits of our control. Sometimes, to experience health, we have to recognize the people who are not able to give us what we need. And so there are some people who are not able to provide certain needs that we have. The person, for example, that person who constantly lies is not a person who could provide you with the safety of trust, right?
Yep.
So yeah, so we have to make a decision to say, you know what, I need trust in my life, and that's not a place where I can get it. Um, so if you would you go to Costco to buy a car?
Go to Costco to buy a car?
Hmm.
Of course, well, of course.
Right, right. So you know, so Costco sells car, right?
Yeah, Costco sell good stuff. That I know, they sell good stuff.
Right. Okay. So will you go to Walmart to buy an SUV, a van for yourself. You want to buy a limousine. Would you go to Walmart to get
I would rather to go to Costco.
it? Right. But you would, what you're saying is that you're going to go to a place where that sells cars, right? You're not going to, if you want a car, you're not going to go to a place that doesn't sell car. I
You're right
mean,
about that.
exactly. So if you want to experience trust, you probably would go to someone who is trustworthy.
It's so true.
And so sometimes we feel stuck because we have to make this very painful decision that in order for us to be healthy, we have to accept that someone we would appreciate having our needs met by is not able to do it. And that's a painful thing. But our self care requires accepting that.
Good point, Elder. Good point. Very, very, very informative. Good point there. It's a lot to take in at one time, but you really touched some good points. I'm telling you. I really appreciate you and what you are doing. I just want to give somebody else a chance to step in.
That's all right. That's all right. I'm happy to have had that conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is anyone else, I know we have a few people left still. I mean, anyone want to share? You have a question that you want to ask, or you heard something that you kind of want clarity about? Please, before we close, you can ask.
Yes. Hello. Hello.
Hello. Yes, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, I'm hearing you clearly. Thank you. Yeah, I'm hearing you very clearly.
Yes. I like some of the points that you brought out, and one of the points that that I liked that you mentioned was let's see, the part about being healthy. What? Let me see. I think I wrote it down. It said here, unhealthy relationships. No, not that one. The part about you saying how taking care of yourself does not mean being self-absorbed. In other words,
Yes.
something to that.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Let me see.
So, so
healthy people are not preoccupied with themselves.
With themselves, yes.
Healthy people, I think that's how you said it. Healthy people are not preoccupied with themselves. And I liked that. I really liked it because, even though we are to take care of ourselves and put the right care within us, whether it's nutritious, exercise, physical, and all that, social, mental, spiritual within us, that in so doing, we do not have to become self-absorbed. So it's like a thin line, Do we have that balance? Do we? Yes. Yes. Sorry about that.
That's all right. That's all right.
So yeah, so that we have to know the balance, and tending to ourselves and taking care of ourselves so that we can perform at our utmost is so critical and crucial. It's very, very important. And a lot of times, and like for myself, growing up when I was younger, I didn't have that knowledge, and I'm just like, I mean, I knew, I just felt like, I knew, everybody said, oh, you're strong, and you're, like they just they would commend me and saying like you're strong and you whatever the case may be, but you don't stay that way all the years of your life, because you need to take care of self to keep it functioning at its utmost. So it's you don't really think that way, you really don't think that way until when you're younger, and some of us don't even get that understanding, even in our older years. We just don't get that understanding. And it's so crucial to life and living a healthy and happy long life,
Absolutely.
So I thank you so much for bringing that out. And
thank you. Appreciate that.
There's a couple other things. But yes, I did enjoy the topic. And definitely at the end, you were touching around boundaries and healthy relationships and so forth. And, this boundaries aspect, I was not aware of in my younger years. And I mean, yes, to have respect for people, and that it's like it just comes automatic if you were brought up with mannerism, to have respect for people, and along having respect, you are having boundaries. You are having boundaries for people, but so that boundaries, it's kind of broad, because it's like you may have boundaries for certain things, and other things you may not have boundaries for, where you may need to have boundaries in or with, if that makes sense. So it's like
right, it does.
It's so broad, you don't know exactly in all things what you need to have boundaries for. So how does one develop, okay, I need to have I know I have boundaries in this, but in that situation or circumstance, my boundaries are not as clear.
Right. And so boundaries are the result of clear understanding of needs. And so when we develop this, and we take the time to have this accurate and positive self-appraisal, what we get to know is ourselves and our needs. And part of our needs in our social relationships, it involves how we want to be treated, what level of treatment is comfortable for us. Not just what is right, but also what is comfortable. What puts me in a position to engage in the relationship, and to bring my heart into it. So how do I want to be spoken to? And how do I want others to relate to me? What kind of social setting I want to engage in? What about the things that I have to do? How does it fit within my comfort? There are some things that might be comfortable. For example, some people may have to develop comfort with PDA, like public display of affection. There are some people who are not comfortable with that. And so, they're going to have to recognize that, I would not want my spouse to perhaps kiss me in church. I may not feel comfortable with that. And so when you have that sense of your need and what level of functioning allow you to feel comfortable and to be experiencing the best expression of yourself, that critical self-appraisal, allow you to develop that information so you can set the boundaries. So the boundaries literally tell others how to relate to you so that you can experience the best expression of yourself. And so that's why this is important. Um, People who don't know themselves very well are are more occupied with themselves than they would wish to think, and than they know. And that's because there are so many defensive. They tend to see things, uh, personalized things that are not even personal, but they see that way because there is a preoccupation with the self, and so they see things through subjective lens. Well, when there is a critical appraisal of self, a positive, and healthy, accurate appraisal of self, we also gain insight into things like unfinished business. And so things that would make relating difficult, that makes it difficult to have clear lines and of demarcation in terms of behaviors that are acceptable, and that are not acceptable. Uh, when we have that appraisal, we then can become clear about those things and then be able to express in a very clear manner to others how we want to be related to. And that's boundary setting. I know we want to think of boundaries as just stop signs, but actually boundaries are also invitations to others that clarify to them how they can function. People actually relate to us more positively when they understand the boundaries. If the boundaries are not clear and are fluid, they don't really know how to relate to us. They cannot be as confident how to relate to us. So when we are able to express those boundaries, we do have healthier relationships, and then we have more positive engagement with others, and then so we can, because remember we said the quality of our relationships is reflected in the quality of our mental and spiritual and social health, even physical health. So I hope I answered you that way. Are you there? All right.
Yes, I'm
Yes.
here. I'm
Elder
sorry, I
Julian?
just couldn't. I
Uh-huh.
couldn't unmute in time, but I'm here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead,
Go ahead.
Sister
No,
Tia.
go on.
Elder Julian,
Yes, go ahead.
some of the boundaries that I've learned it through my parents
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to relationship. Certain things that my mom or my dad always taught me you should not put up to.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad always says to me, people treat you the way you allow them how to treat you.
Mm-hmm.
When something starts, Daddy always
Mm-hmm.
says, you have to let the person knows, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
school, teachers, professors, this is
Mm-hmm.
not what I like. I don't
Mm-hmm.
expect you to talk to me in that manner, and
Mm-hmm.
etc., etc. He said you had to nip it right
Mm-hmm.
then and there so people understand what you
Right.
mean and what you're
Right.
standing for. And
Mm-hmm.
like I said, most boundaries that I learned through my parents.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
fortunately, I have a sister, as you know, she's no longer here because
Mm-hmm.
when you allow people to do anything to you and you don't
Mm-hmm.
set boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
in my opinion, it does not get better, it gets worse.
Right.
So you put up
Right.
to anything.
Right. Right.
And
Mm-hmm.
and it's like you lose respect for yourself. You don't know what you're worth.
Mm-hmm.
You forget how you
Mm-hmm.
were raised. And as a
Mm-hmm.
result, oftentimes it turned into abuse.
Right.
Whether it's financial abuse, verbally abuse, but it eventually affect your mental health.
Right.
After a while, we found out after that my sister's mental health was affected and she hid it from us. But, you know, she can't blame our parent because mommy and daddy always set a standard. But you only can talk to your children. They don't have to listen. And my sister was an amazing person. But she was very quiet. Very quiet, very soft-spoken. She was not assertive. And, but like I said, you know, so many things that I learned from my parents. And as a result, some of my friends will say, you know what? You're very strict, or you're this, or you're that. I said, why you say that? Because I don't put up to nonsense, because you'll put up to certain things. I said, that's you. That's on you. If you want to put up to certain situation, it's on you. I'm not going to judge you. I am telling you, you're asking me. And I said, I am not putting up to that type of behavior. I've never seen, for example, I've never seen my dad stay out one night. Daddy always at the dinner table. I said, those things means a lot to me. So if you want to put up to certain things, that's fine. I won't put up to certain things.
Right. So
there's certain things I will not put up.
Yeah.
I would not put up with. I'm just not going to put up with it. It's not I'm better than anyone. I just was raised different, and I'm far from being perfect. But you know, there's certain things you just because what I found it. You know what my kid says to me. My children, they're all grown, as you know, and my mom, more than one. They said one thing with you, mommy. You know when to let go. I cannot put anybody above myself. So some people look at it that I'm selfish. Some said I'm spoiled. My friend said I'm spoiled. I said, why am I spoiled? Why do you say I'm spoiled? And one of the reasons one of my friends said you're spoiled because your dad is always around. I said, really? I said, no. Daddy just taught me right from wrong. Now, to be honest, I listen to everything that he says. But there's certain things I just will not put up with.
Yeah. So in other words, you have a clearly defined sense of who you are, how you want to be in the world, and what you want to allow in your life.
Yes, absolutely. Because your children actually copy what you do, and children live what they learn. And I'm hearing it echoing through my children. Mommy didn't put up to so certain things, so I won't be putting up to it. I said, what? She said, Mommy, we were watching you.
Right. So there are two levels of boundaries. We have these objective boundaries that, they're represented in God's laws, God's commandments, and the Ten Commandments in particular, and some other areas that clearly define what God expects of all people, no matter who you are, where you're from. God expects that. That's the universal standards. There are some standards that also are for a particular people because they are the rules of a particular country. And so everyone who lives in that country have to abide by that rule. These are universal rules that everyone follows. But then there is also this other subjective rules. For example, most families, have different ways of functioning. And there are some rules that one person have in their home that another person doesn't have in their home. It doesn't mean that the person who doesn't have it in their home has a home that is less significant. You just have different rules because your home is operating on different values. And
Correct.
so when you have that, these rules are not universal rules, but they're nonetheless important rules. I cannot come in your house because a particular rule does not exist in my home. I cannot come into your house and decide to ignore the rule that's in your house just because it's not in my house. You know,
Right.
a healthy way of relating would mean that I would respect the rule in your house. For example, I got some very good friends, extremely good friends, but I would never walk into their house and walk into their bedroom.
Correct.
It doesn't matter how close we are. I'm not going to do that because it's an unwritten expectation that governs having healthy boundaries. You know, actually, I was
Right.
in Grenada. I'm in my brother's house, and my brother said to me, "You don't have to ask; just do whatever you want." And I said to him, "I know you don't really mean that." And then he laughed and said, "You know, I'm pretty sure if you saw me in your wallet, you might think I'm stealing, right?" You know, and we laugh about it, but that's what you see what I'm saying, right? Um, you know,
Right.
there are certain things that we understand governs healthy interrelatedness, and so we want to. If I saw you in church, Sister Darling, and I walk up to you and I said, "Hey, girl, what's up, girl?" You look at me strange, wouldn't you? You probably would. You're like, "What?" You know, because even if I know you care about me and I care about you, there is a you know a sort of expectation that govern how we relate to each other, right?
Correct.
And if that's violated, it creates discomfort, and so I think it's important for us to appreciate that, and that's why it is important for each of us to clarify how we want to be treated. And like you said, if someone wasn't aware, the moment someone acts in a way that violates, our sense of comfort, it is on us. And we talked about assertiveness last week. It's on us to step in and say, you know what? Maybe you were not aware of this, but that is something I that's very difficult for me to accept, and I'm hoping that you could appreciate that when we are connecting, you treated me this way instead of that way, and we make it clear that that's not something we're going to accept, and if after saying that it happens again, then we may have to introduce a consequence by saying, I noticed we spoke about that the last time, and I'm not so sure if you forgot, but I noticed it happened again, and I'd like to let you know that I really appreciate you being aware that that's not something I could live with. And I'm telling you right now, if that's not something you could do, then I'm going to have to perhaps withdraw from my connectedness with you.
So true.
Because remember, we are responsible for our health, whether it's mental, social, spiritual, or physical. We're responsible for that. And we are responsible for communicating to people how we want to be treated. And if we cannot do that, then we are in an abusive situation. And that is not healthy either. We need to not be in that situation.
It's so true.
Hi, I wanted to chime in here if I may.
Go right ahead. Mm-hmm.
I want to talk about the part where you had said unhealthy. Wait, let me make sure I'm saying it correctly. Where you had said something about unhealthy relationships when needs are not being met, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I could understand that when you're in a relationship, but what if with someone, but what if you're I mean, does that apply to all relationships? Because what if you're just in a casual relationship with someone? You know, you're not really looking for them to provide your needs. You know, you're just in a casual relationship or an acquaintance relationship. So does it apply to that too, or is it just for couples?
Well, yeah, I mean, again, in each level of relationship, the expectations may differ, and we may have a different level of emotional connectedness to the individuals. For example, if I get on the train, there are unwritten rules about how you should relate on the train. Um, you know, when we're on the train, if there is no seat, I don't expect anyone to come and sit on my leg. Does that make sense? There are boundaries everywhere. Um, you know, and that's something that we do, and there are expectations that we have. And so if someone you know, and engages, you know, even when we're on the train, there are expectations. For example, we have personal space limits, and so I could expect that if we're on the train and the train is crowded, most times people they try to come on your side, but they don't come and stand right in front of you in a front end position. That would be a violation of your private space. So there are rules everywhere for how we engage, and we have the right to expect others to respond to those rules in a healthy way. So we either need to remove ourselves from that situation or ask others to not be relating to us in this kind of expectation. I hope I am answering you here.
But what if you don't have, I can understand that, but what if you don't have any expectations or needs from others?
Yeah, so give me an example of not having expectation and needs from others.
Like, for example, um, you know, there are certain people that you are in contact with. You may not be in contact every day with them. You may be in contact, not as frequent, but frequent. Let's say once a week or something like that. Or, you know, you may see them, come around them once a week, but you're not really looking for anything from them. I mean, I guess technically, you know, little things, like you're not expecting them to just, you are expecting them to speak with you or to you respectfully. You know, that's little minor stuff, but I'm talking about like supplying things to you, or, you know, you're not really looking for any monetary, anything monetary from them, or anything tangible from them. But you definitely are expecting them to have respect for you, and you know, to talk with you. Yeah.
So we have
at work, let's just even say coworkers. You know, you see them every day. You're not really, you know, looking for your needs to be met through them. I guess certain ones, yeah, but there are some where you're not really looking for your needs to be met through them.
Right.
You're not looking for anything from certain individuals that you're in contact with. Then what does that mean?
Right. So it means that you're on the right track, because different relationships becomes resources for meeting different needs. And so I would not expect my boss to uh, to meet my my emotional need, to be my emotional support system. If a boss could do that, that's amazing. But usually, my boss is not the person I would want to go and tell my coupling problems or my family problems, right? Um, so I may not want to put my boss in that position, and so neither would I want to have my boss in that. I really wouldn't want to have my boss in my bedroom. So I probably wouldn't want to go and talk to my boss about my wife's situation. That's not something I would want to do. Um, but if I want a raise, I will go to my boss and say, well, I'm requesting a raise because of so and so. I give him a rationale for that. So that's an expectation that comes to that level of relationship. So we have different people in our lives, and each person in our life, because of the level of relationship we have with them and the type of relationship that we have with them, we are able to go to them with certain needs and have those needs met. I could be in church, and it's not that I don't trust everybody in church, but I have different relationship with different people in church, and so there are some things I can say to someone easier than I could say to someone else because I have a different level of relationship with that person. And it doesn't mean that we're not honest brothers and sisters in the faith. It's just that we have a different relationship, and so I can go to the person with a different level of need. And that's exactly how life needs to be. We have to discern um, who I can go to talk to about what, and who I can expect what from. And if I expect this from someone and they're not giving it, then I have to recognize that particular person, my evaluation of that other person's position and the relationship needs to change, because that person was placed in a category that they did not belong. So self-care demands that I have those kind of honest appraisals and provide myself with the flexibility to utilize discretion about my needs being met, um, and to have those needs met in a way that maintains my sense of security. I hope I'm answering you. All right. So, would there be any other questions that anyone may have had that we could answer at this time before we close finally? All right. If not, then let's close. And I'd like to ask us to remember. I did offer something very upfront, and I'm literally inviting you to take me up on this offer, to take a moment, perhaps, and go back, um, get a piece of paper, create an agenda-like table, you know, put down the 24-hour or the 16-hour period, um, and literally write out what you have done each day for the last couple of days, each hour of the day. Write it out and just the facts as it is. And then think about your life. Think about your life in terms of your physical health and what is required to maintain that, your emotional health and what is required to maintain that, your social health and what is required to maintain it, and your spiritual health and what is required to maintain that. And then you look at that list and see if those things that are required to maintain your physical, your emotional, your social, and your spiritual health, your mental health, are present in your daily activities. And if not, you may want to discover that you might need to begin to put these things into your daily activities so that you are taking care of your health. Is there any rest in there? Is there, a consistent meal time? Are you getting enough sleep? You know, are there times for reading positive material or watching positive material, developing your mind? Do you have things in there that support that? You can put that in there. How about, is there time for a scheduled time? Is there time enough for prayer, for Bible study? Whatever that is might be involved there. Is there a time for meeting with my support system, right? Talk to people. Do I ever have time to offload, to share about the burdensome things that I deal with, or do I have to just carry them alone? Who do I talk? Is there time to talk about my pain, or the difficulties that I face? Is there any time in there where I talk about these things, or are these things just internalized and I get be laden with them? So I do that exercise where you just create an agenda that allow you to see on paper all the things that you've done in the last 2 days, hour by hour, what you were doing. Just kind of write it out. And then ask yourself this question: does my activities suggest that I'm taking the best care of myself? Or do I see ways for growth and for change so that I can maintain my best sense of self? Because if I'm experiencing the healthiest version of myself, then I'll have the healthiest presentation of myself, and I will be living for the glory of God, in my fellowship, and both in my appreciation for the gift that He's given me. Remember, there's only one me with one life, with one chance to take care of the one me in that one life. May God bless us real good as we take the time to, and thank you again for your contribution. Thank you for being with us. And I pray that somewhere in there, each of us would have found some level of information that would be empowering for us as we go through this week. May God bless you. Remember that we serve an amazing God, and we can do all things through Christ who strengthens us. Remember, as Elder Ashley pointed out today in the sermon, the significance of being the ice cream truck Christian. We could hear the sound of the promises, even if we cannot see the evidence of them in the practice. But our faith is based on the fact that we know that God is going to deliver, because God delivers. And so, our situation, when God speaks to our situation, God speaks into the situation everything that we need. And we can rely on Him, we can trust Him, and we can know that God is going to come through for us. And may I just add here that we don't want to become too preoccupied with God being for us the way we want Him to be for us, because perhaps His knowledge of what we need, because it supersedes what we could ever know about our own needs, God might be supplying, might be answering our prayers in ways that are different from our expectation. It doesn't mean that He's not answering, but it means that He's a loving God who knows us better than we can know ourselves, is providing just what we need. So let's continue to trust Him and to know that He's always acting in our best interest. God bless you real good as we continue to have the greatest fellowship. Thank you for being a part of RPT. Remember, Tomorrow evening, we have, Dr. Grace Kelly and the Grief Support Group and Training. If you're a part of that, please, remember to log in and to connect and to share with someone the possibility of this, of finding help in that particular way. It's an amazing program, and many people have been helped and are being helped in that process. So please share a word to someone about who might just need to know that this service is available for them. Remember that on Monday night, we have Sister Mason with Youth Vibes, and young people are having a wonderful time experience over the past many years working with her. She's doing an amazing job, and our young people are being inspired as they work with her, creating platforms for launching into amazing Christian lives. And then on Tuesday night, we have Attorney Maitland, who comes here on every Tuesday evening, signing with him and the Maitland Foundation. He answers our questions on Social Security, immigration, and other legal questions that we might have. And he definitely, if it is not within his expertise, he would know how to guide us to get the answers we need. So log in and be a part of that experience as we receive guidance from the Maitland Foundation. On Wednesday night, we have Bible prayer is a prayer night and our prayer power night, when we come together and as a church community and we can pray together, and we thank God for Sister Smith and the team and Brother Davidson, who are faithfully every Wednesday allowing us to have amazing prayer programs. So please log in and experience the power of prayer as the church prays together. Then, of course, on Thursday night, we have Sister Vanessa, who spearheads our exercise program. So continue to support and be blessed by that. And of course, on Friday nights, we do have Vespers with Brother Davidson at Friday evening. I think at 8:30 it is. So 8 o'clock. I think you should join in, be a part of all these amazing programs. Next week there is this amazing Family Fun Day. Don't forget the Family Fun Day next week. And remember that it's going to be an exciting time as we go to the water park and just have an amazing time. Remember, RPT knows how to have fun. You don't want to miss that. And Sister Ajaya tells us today that it's important for us to finalize our arrangements to be there by Wednesday. There are a few availabilities, not very much of that left. That's highly competitive at this time. So reach out to Sister Ajaya, Pastor Wright, or anyone else on the team who can give you all the information that you need, so to ensure that you can have fun together as you go out to the park and have a wonderful experience. You're invited also to the youth and young adults program every Friday night. I think the Zoom link is 861-3833-6528. And the password is RPT Youth, all in lowercase letters. Please join in. There's amazing stuff happening there. Our young people are being guided and have an amazing experience, learning about themselves, learning about how they ought to be in society and how they can be, and learning about how to engage with others and allow others to engage with them. An amazing platform is being created for them as they launch out into their, divinely led lives. So we're grateful to have you, and remember, and to continue to pray for those of our members who are not doing well. Remember those who are sick, and if every one of us could remember that, to say a word of prayer for someone as they come to our mind this week. We're so grateful for you to do that. And please remember to share the link every week. Get on our phones and share the link. To our contacts. We need you to share the link. And we need you to, whether you're on Facebook or in YouTube, like and subscribe to our channels and help us get the word out there. We need to do that. So we're grateful for your support, and we're just so happy that we have you with us in our fellowship. So may God bless you real good this week as you continue to live for the Master and experience the power of God in our lives. God bless you and have a wonderful week. Father God, I'm just so grateful today that you have given us this chance to have a great worship. Thank you for Sabbath. Thank you for the rest. And thank you for every privilege we've had. We're so grateful that you have expanded the ministry of Pastor Wright and Sister Wright and the family, and provided this greater context for us to share in our worship. And so we pray, oh God, that you will continue to inspire us. We need you more than we ever did. We're living in very critical times. And these times, Father, requires special ways to evangelize the world. So we ask you for wisdom and for knowledge. Pray that you would minister to your people wherever they are at the sound of my voice at this moment. May you touch them and answer their prayers. Somebody is praying to you in this moment, God, and I ask you to bless them, is our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Elder. Thank you. Such a beautiful program. I enjoyed it. Thank you so much, and God bless you. And you have a wonderful rest of the night and a blessed week.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Sister Shaman. You have an amazing week yourself, and God bless you and